What is going on, everybody? You got Matty BROLLIC here, and I am back with another overused Wi-Fi battle in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Now, a pretty interesting backstory about this Wi-Fi battle. Now, I was online, just chilling, just doing my thing, as this Sapphire person randomly sent me a challenge as they were a passerby. It wasn't even like this person was on my friends list already. They just happened to be a passerby, and I don't know if maybe they recognized my name and decided to challenge me through that, because it's not like I'm a like I have a gigantic channel or anything, but I guess in the Smogon community I'm rather well known, so maybe they happened to see my name and knew who I was, or I don't know, maybe they just happened to challenge me, and it turns out that I knew what I was doing and they knew what they were doing, and that's just kind of how things worked out. I really don't know, but anyway, they challenged me and I didn't really have anything to do, so I accepted it, and I had a team in my battle box. It was a pretty cool Mega Houndoom team that I've used, even in like the 1900s on the Showdown ladder and in a few tournament games, and it's always done pretty well for me. But I got absolutely annihilated. It was so bad that I didn't even get to see my opponent's full team, because it looked like a really cool team, but I didn't even get to see their whole team because they predicted around me a bunch of times early on, and right away I knew that they were a really competent player, and that's why I figured maybe they knew who I was, because it almost seemed like they knew how I like to play and they like to play around me. And they also had two Pokemon that really just destroyed my team on top of that, so it was horrible. So I was like, you know what, this person's pretty good. I have a bunch of teams to test out, so why not send them another challenge, see if they're up for another battle. So I challenged them a second time, and as it looks like I'm about to sweep them with a Scolipede, they decide to forfeit, and the match ends at 6-5. So that was a really short match. I don't know if I would have gotten a full 6-0, but I was in a very good spot to win at that point at least. So then finally we had one more battle, and this one finally turned out to be a good battle. So I figured this is the one I would upload. I was going to upload all three, but the first one was a terrible battle of just me getting crushed, which might be funny for you guys to watch. But then the second one literally wasn't even a battle, because it only lasted, I don't know, maybe 10 turns, not even, before my opponent forfeited. So I felt that it wasn't really worth its own upload unless I tried to upload them all together, but then I figured they may take too long for me to sit there and narrate each one, even though the second one wasn't very long. The first one was decently long, even though I got destroyed 5-0. So anyway, we decided to have a third battle. I asked them if they wanted to have a tiebreaker, just in the little message bar. And these are the teams that we brought. I brought my old reliable. If you guys have seen my channel, you probably know that this is my favorite team, my absolute favorite team that I've ever made, ever. My Mega Steelix Trick Room team. I would even go so far as to say that it may be the best Trick Room team in all of Gen 6. And obviously there's a lot of bias in me saying that, but it's one of those teams that's really withstood the changes of the metagame through time better than most other teams I've seen, especially Trick Room, as Trick Room is usually like a metagame countering type of team, and this team has always stayed pretty solid. That worked well in many metagames, or many versions of the ORAS metagame, because that's when I initially built it, in the beginning of ORAS. So anyway, it's all reliable for me, and it's just one of the most fun teams I've ever built around one of my absolute favorite Megas in Mega Steelix, and one of my favorite Pokemon in Crawdad. And I really just love all the Pokemon on this team except for Cresselia, but it does its job very, very well in this type of team. As my opponent has a pretty cool team, a really nice Sand Offense Mega Sceptile team. Mega Sceptile is my favorite Mega Evolution, and then he's got things like AV Tornadus and Specs Keldeo, plus, pretty standard Rotom Wash. So, really scary team, as Keldeo is a big threat. Excadrill is a big threat because Life Orb isn't too bad, but he turns out to be SD, so it's definitely an interesting matchup, and it turns out to be a good game. So, you know what? We will get right into the battle, which we kind of won't, because I just started it now, and it takes a little while to actually go into the battling screen. But anyway, so yeah, we will get into this battle whenever it decides to start, because it was definitely a fun one. I enjoyed this series with player Sapphire a lot. And if Sapphire, if you happen to be watching this game for whatever reason, please let me know who you are. These were fun battles, and I would like to battle again sometime. So I lead with Dead Machamp, my Cofagrigus, as he leads with his Tornadus. So here I'm just going to go right for the Will-O-Wisp, because Knockoff or Hurricane won't do too much to me if he's AV, and I can scout the set here. So Will-O-Wisp will be nice on whatever he wants to send out, because nothing on his team can take a Will-O-Wisp. Nothing on his team is immune to Will-O-Wisp, rather. So here he goes in a Rotom, and me weakening this Rotom will be huge. So I know I could set up a nasty plot on this thing as he goes for Will-O-Wisp. He does connect, but it's okay because I have leftovers to mitigate a lot of that burn damage. And then on the next turn, he's got to hit a Hydro Pump to really have a chance at weakening my Cofagrigus for the rest of his team. And if he goes for something like Volt Switch, I'm totally fine with that, because +2 Cofagrigus kind of just beats his whole team, so especially under the Trick Room. So he goes for the Hydro Pump, as that does do a pretty decent chunk to me, probably around 40-something%, maybe even 50, as I go right for the Trick Room. And now I am a +2 Machamp, and he, after these rounds of burn, is in guaranteed range of a +2 Shadow Ball. So he's just going to stay in here, I guess, not wanting anything else to get too KO'd. But that's actually very nice for me, because that allows Crawdon to have a better matchup. It allows Mega Steelix to have a better matchup, even though he does have a Hippowdon, which is a pretty nice counter. But the rest of his team does not like Mega Steelix. So here I knock that thing right out, as now he goes into his Tornadus, as this must be Assault Vest, because if he's Life Orb, he would not want to send it in here because it's just going to die to a Shadow Ball. So here I decide to save my Machamp, because he's probably going to go for a safe knockoff or something of the sort, just to knock out my Cofagrigus, as Steelix could take a knockoff. Even if he does go for Heat Wave, it's not the end of the world, because he's still going to want to switch out the next turn, as Steelix could destroy Tornadus with a 180 base power, max attack, brave, heavy slam. So I predict him to switch into Hippowdon, and I just go right for the rocks. Even though a Sandforce boosted Heavy Slam would do a ton to this Hippowdon, it wouldn't do half. So it wasn't like I could just 2-hit KO it. It would only do around 40%. So here I can go, actually no, Heavy Slam wouldn't, because Hippowdon is heavy, but Earthquake would. So here I just go right for the Stealth Rocks, as now it puts pressure on him to spin with Excadrill. So here I could just switch out and go right into my Cofagrigus, because his best play is just to Earthquake. There's no reason for him to go right for his Stealth Rocks here. If I want to switch into something like Crawdon, that could just fire off Crab Hammers against his team without any fear. So here, the Twisted Dimensions return to normal, but I can still go into Crawdon, because even if he does outspeed me outside of the Trick Room, which he shouldn't, because I have perfect speed IVs, even though I'm brave, he will lose his Hippowdon and his Sand. So here, he goes right into Keldeo. As I click Crab Hammer, this will do over half and put him in guaranteed range of a knockoff. And of course, Crab Hammer does what it does best, and it misses. So here, I have to switch out and go into Dragalge, because now, all of a sudden, I went from being in a great spot to actually a pretty bad spot, because Trick Room, once it gets hacked, can really, really slow down. So he goes right for a Scald, and now I'm able to take that pretty well, as Dragalge, max HP, is really bulky, and I believe that it is Specs damage, though. As here, I could just click Draco Meteor, as I'm pretty much getting a kill. Unless he goes an Excadrill, but weakening that Excadrill would be pretty nice for me, considering the set I find out it is Laser. He goes into Torn, hoping that maybe he could live this, but he is not living a Specs Dragalge Draco Meteor. So that's fine, as unfortunately, the Tornadus sack, it's good that I got a kill, but Tornadus probably wasn't one of the bigger threats to my team here. So here I have to switch out, because he's going to go into Excadrill here. And he's probably going to want to just spin and get these rocks out of the way, because he really doesn't lose anything by it. He probably knows that I'm Specs damaged by me knocking out the Tornadus. The only other thing I could be to be able to knock him out from that range, if he's AV, is probably like Draco Plate. So I go right into Cresselia, because if he's Life Orb, I just completely wall this thing and 1v1 it. But it turns out that he's Air Balloon. So here I just go right for the Trick Room, as even if he does have the SD, I could play around this thing. As here, he may want to go right for the Iron Head, because he can't touch Cresselia otherwise. But if he does go for Earthquake, it's not too big of a deal, because my Mega Steelix isn't as good against his team, because this Excadrill is on a balloon and I haven't popped it yet. And also, he's got the counter and Hippowdon. So I go right into Steelix, hoping that he would Iron Head, but he does just go right for the Earthquake, which was a good play on his part. But here, I go right into my Crawdon. And because I missed the Crab Hammer before, like I said, I'm not in the driver's seat like I would have been. So now I need to make a little bit of an aggressive play. I decide to go right for the Swords Dance here, because I know he's going to want to switch out and save his Excadrill, as it beats a lot of my team and sets up on Cresselia all day. As here he goes right into Sceptile, and at +2, I could easily knock this thing out with knockoff. He was trying to waste a Trick Room turn by me going for Crab Hammer, and then he can go in his Keldeo, which is healthy and can take a hit, but I was not going to let that happen. So I would go right for the knockoff here, as now he goes into his Hippowdon, knowing that Keldeo probably will go down to a +2 hit, and that it is more important than his Hippowdon. So here, he goes for the Earthquake, and he does outspeed me under the Trick Room, so he does get a decent chunk of damage off, but I finally do hit my Crab Hammer, which is great. Knockoff is not a guaranteed KO. If I did have the rocks damage, knockoff would have been pretty close, but I could not risk it, so I had to click Crab Hammer there. Hopefully I get a little bit of justice and hit this time, as here he goes into Keldeo. Now I definitely want to save this thing because its Aqua Jet is really nice for his Excadrill. So here I go back into my Cresselia because I figured if he does go for Scald and he does burn me, I can go into Porygon 2, easily take 2 of those. As this thing is specs, Porygon especially defensive, and I can set up a Trick Room, and Porygon actually threatens his team quite a bit as well. As here I realize I can get up a Trick Room here, guaranteed, even if he does burn me, and if he doesn't burn me, I can get a Healing Wish off or Lunar Dance off as well, which basically will clean up the game for me, or allow me to clean up the game, because here I figure he's going to want to switch out, even if because I may have Psychic to revenge this thing, but even if he doesn't, I'm still in great shape because I can go into Crawdaunt and then just pivot right back into my Porygon 2 or my Dragalge, as both of those would avoid a KO from a Keldeo Scald from there, even if he did burn me. So just having Crawdaunt to be able to revenge his Excadrill even outside of the sand, outside of the Trick Room, is really, really nice and important. So here, because he did go on Excadrill, he just made it a little bit easier for me, but I understand the play because he may have expected a Psychic from my Cresselia onto the Keldeo, so then all I have is Crawdaunt to be able to revenge Excadrill, so that was probably his best plays. Here I could just click knockoff as it cleanly KOs the Excadrill, and now he goes into his last, which is his Keldeo, and my best play is to just knock this off and get a lot of damage so I could just easily go right into my Dragalge and click Sludge Wave to be able to revenge this thing, as he knocks me out with the Secret Sword here. So I'm going to be able to pick up this win 2-0, which ended up being a pretty close game considering the fact that I had a pretty decent matchup against this team. But once I missed that Crab Hammer with Crawdaunt, all of a sudden things actually got pretty tricky. And had he predicted me to stay in and go for Swords Dance with my Crawdaunt while he had his Excadrill out, then he probably would have won this game. I didn't necessarily have to make that play to win, but him losing his Excadrill there would have been a really, really poor play on his part, because had he lost his Excadrill, then basically Cresselia just 1v1 the rest of his team, as well as things like P2 and Dragalge, as P2 getting the special attack boost from download can 1v1 a Hippowdon with Ice Beam, and if Keldeo's locked into any move that is not Secret Sword, it can do tons of damage with Thunderbolt, as Cresselia just easily 1v1s Keldeo that's not locked into Hydro Pump. And even if it is, if I'm at full HP, I just set up a Trick Room. I could recover till it misses, or I could just Psychic it if it's at a low enough amount of HP and knock it out. So that's why he really needed his Excadrill, and I felt it was necessary for me to Swords Dance there, just because, had I hit that Crab Hammer earlier, I would have no reason to Swords Dance, because I could just click a button, either knock off a Crab Hammer, and regardless of whether he switches in his Keldeo or not, he's going to go down. So that was the reason that I had to play that in the way that I did. And thankfully, it ended up paying off, because we did get that unfortunate Crab Hammer miss early on. So that was an awesome game. We did end up winning this little series that we had, best of 3, 2-1. And like I said, those first 2 games were not even worth uploading. Even if I did have the full second game, it was basically me making a couple try-hard plays and catching him off guard and being able to sweep him with a SD Scolipede. So that was not necessarily the best game to watch either, because it just would have been like a clean 6-0 or just a really big deficit of a game with me being in control the whole time. And those aren't really as entertaining to watch for Wi-Fi battles, in my opinion, because it's not like a Showdown Live where you're just showing people you playing live, and if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. If you destroy someone, you destroy them. And if you get crushed, you get crushed. This is just more like, it's one battle. You want it to be a good one. So that's why I figured I would only upload this one. but at least I know that I do have a new friend on my friends list that is a good Wi-Fi battler and has a lot of pretty solid Smogon teams and really understands a lot of the basic or even more intricate concepts in OU to win a battle. I mean, that first game, they really showed me that they knew how to predict around someone. They were baiting me and doing all these different things. And I never should have let it happen because I realized that they had a pretty good matchup against me, but I really just, it's so hard to know a player's skill level without knowing who they are. And if they knew that I was Matty BROLLIC, that, I'm a competitive Pokemon YouTuber, that they, could play around me a certain way where they had that knowledge advantage before the game even started. So anyway, that is it for this upload. I hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely let me know what you thought in the comments. More of these to come. And like I said, cannot wait for Sun and Moon Wi-Fi battles. The Wi-Fi scene is going to be popping at that time. And I am very, very excited for that because just playing some of these Wi-Fi battles recently really reminded me of how exhilarating Wi-Fi battles could be. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because I breed my own teams and the feeling of putting all that work into your teams and then having them win is, or at least wanting to have them win is really strong because you really, really want all your hard work to pay off and you don't want it to just go to waste. So you're going to do your best to win and the tensions get high and the graphics are beautiful, so it's a lot of fun. So that is about it. I'll stop rambling, and most importantly, I hope you guys have yourselves a fantastic day, and I will see you all in the next one. Later.